Hello, this is Lady Boulay, and welcome back to Black American Lineage. Today I'm going to talk about Mrs. Mary McCleod Bethune, but I'm going to do something a little different. There is a chapter about her in a book I'm reading called Negroes Who Helped Build America. And so I'm going to read this passage to you, and since it's kind of lengthy, and I don't like for my videos to be too long, I'm going to break it up into two parts. So this is the first part, and this is Mary McCleod Bethune, educator. A quote from Mrs. Bethune is, "If I have legacy to leave my people, it is my philosophy of living and serving. As I face tomorrow, I am content, for I think I have spent my life well." Mary McCleod Bethune. Despite heavy odds, Mary McCleod Bethune, one of 17 children of poor Southern parents, founded an institution that opened the doors of learning to the newly emancipated. The story of Bethune Cookman College is a tribute to her vision, energy, and courage. Mary McCleod was born on July 10, 1875, in a four-room cabin on a small cotton and rice plantation about 3 miles from Maysville, South Carolina. Mary's parents, like many slaves, took the name of their master as their own. Thus, because they had lived on the McCleod plantation, they used the surname McCleod. After the Civil War, Mary's parents continued to work on their master's plantation, as did many other freed Negroes. After a time, however, they were able to secure 5 acres of cotton land. This was not enough to support them, so Mary worked with her family. When evening came, she had the job of checking the candles and lamps in her house, which she did quickly and thoroughly. Mary also helped her mother with washing and ironing for white families in nearby towns. One morning, as Mary walked toward the back entrance of one house, the children called her to their playhouse. "Come here, Mary. You may play with our dolls." Mary joined the little girls and walked about the room holding a beautiful doll. She looked with amazement at the toys, dishes, dolls, and doll clothes. Suddenly she saw a picture book, picked it up, and started to look at it. "Put that down. You can't read," shouted a little girl as she rushed to her and snatched away the book. "You can't read." Now remember, this is a carryover from slavery. So now it's ingrained in the minds of white people, including white children, that black people shouldn't learn how to read, and then they turn around and tell them you can't read. No, she couldn't read because she hadn't been taught. Mary never forgot those words. From then on, the desire to read and write never died. She thought that people with money were different, and mostly because they read books. She no longer wanted to work in the cotton fields. Fortunately, the opportunity to learn was not long in coming. The missionary board of the Presbyterian Church opened a school for Negro children about 5 miles from Maysville. Miss Emma Wilson, the teacher, began to recruit children for the school. She asked Mary's parents, "Will you allow your children to attend school when the cotton picking is finished?" Mary was chosen by her parents to go to school. Mary's devotion to her parents and her desire to help them endeared her to them. Also, she seemed the most intelligent of the children. For 6 years, Mary happily walked the 5-mile dirt road to and from the one-room school. She learned to read and use numbers. During the evenings, she shared the mysteries of her new knowledge with her less fortunate brothers and sisters. The family and neighbors began to depend on Mary to calculate the weight of their cotton, to determine its price, and to help them with all of their other business transactions. Soon, Mary became the favorite of the community. Mary's graduation from Maysville School was the greatest event in her life and in the lives of her family as well. All of the family and friends of the members of the graduating class attended the ceremony. Many white people also came to share the Negroes' pride in their children's achievements. Northern members of the Presbyterian Church Board also attended. Tears came to the eyes of Mary's mother and father as they watched their child graduate. Mary received her diploma with outward composure, but within her, she felt the same anxiety of graduates everywhere who know that they are approaching adulthood. After graduation, Mary wanted to continue her education, but misfortune befell the family when their only mule died. He was the most valued item in the household because he performed many of the important chores. After he died, Mary was needed to help with the plowing. It seemed that her formal education had ended. Then something wonderful happened to Mary. Miss Mary Chrisman, a dressmaker and Quaker from Denver, Colorado, offered to provide a scholarship for one of the students of the Maysville Mission School. Miss Wilson recommended that Mary be awarded the scholarship to Scotia Seminary in Concord, North Carolina. At Scotia, Mary learned the Christian teachings about the brotherhood of man. It was at that time that she decided she would like to become a missionary in Africa. Also, because of the graciousness of the white people at Scotia, Mary gained a more impartial understanding of America's race problem. That understanding led to friendships with people of both races, which proved very rewarding in her educational work later. When Mary left Scotia, she hoped for an opportunity to go to Africa. She believed that her education had brought with it the responsibility of sharing her knowledge with less fortunate Negroes. I find it very interesting that she thought she should share her education with Africans instead of the people in South Carolina who also needed the knowledge. Although no opening was available to enter the foreign service, Miss Chrisman granted her another scholarship, this time to Moody Bible Institute in Chicago, Illinois. There she met students from all over the world. When Moody Institute established new missions, Mary toured with the gospel team as chief vocalist and sometimes preached in the missions. Wow. After graduating from her 2-year study at the Institute, Mary was greatly disappointed when she was told that there were no missionary openings in Africa. And that was because they didn't want any black people from America going over there telling Africans what white people were really like. And they also didn't want a black person interfering with the propaganda, with the indoctrination that they had going with the Africans. So they had plenty positions available for white missionaries. They just didn't want any black American missionaries going to Africa. Moving right along, her training had given her the tools to teach people how to help themselves, and she wanted to see those tools put to use. So she turned her attention to the South, where she had been born and raised, which is where it should have been in the first place. Mary McCleod decided to teach where she was needed. She offered her services, therefore, to Miss Lucy Laney, another great Negro educator at the Haynes Institute in Augusta, Georgia. The two women became devoted friends of the underprivileged children of Georgia's rural areas. Mary organized a children's course, scrubbed faces, and begged for clothing and shoes for the needy. Soon every part of the South asked for her teaching services. She answered some of those invitations, going first to Sumter, South Carolina. In Sumter, she met and married McCleod Bethune. Together they moved to Savannah, Georgia, when Mr. Bethune opened a tailor shop. From Savannah, the Bethunes, now with a son, moved to Palatka, Florida, where Mary taught. The family lived there for 5 years. During this time, Mr. Bethune died. For many years, Mary had dreamed of establishing a school for girls, a place where she could teach the useful things that her experience had taught her. She heard that there was a great need for a teacher at the fashionable resort area at Daytona Beach. She learned that hundreds of Negroes were migrating to eastern Florida to find work, and that many were living in squalor and ignorance. When she arrived in Daytona Beach with her 5-year-old son Albert, Mrs. Bethune found that living conditions were worse than she had expected. Moreover, Mrs. Bethune was deeply saddened when she found that the Negro population was indifferent to her desire to build a new school. That gives some idea about how successful the propaganda machine had been in convincing black people that they didn't need an education. The white people did, but the black people didn't. Still convinced that her mission was important, Mrs. Bethune decided to stay. She chose Daytona near Daytona Beach as the site for her school. In September 1904, Mrs. Bethune found an empty shack a few blocks from the railroad tracks. The owner rented it for $11 a month, but when all that Mrs. Bethune could afford was $1.50, he decided to trust her to pay the balance when she could. Isn't that nice? On October 3rd, 1904, Mrs. Bethune's school was officially opened. It was called the Daytona Educational and Industrial Training School for Negro Girls. So anytime you hear industrial school, normal school, or training school, you know they're talking about schools for black people. The student body contained of 5 little girls and her son. The parents agreed to pay 50 cents a week for tuition. Parents and friends crowded into the cottage to watch the opening exercises on the first day of school. That had to have been exciting for the parents who got it, because remember, in the South at that time, no formal education, no public education was being provided for black children. The parents had to make that effort on their own. So that had to have been an exciting event for those parents and children. Okay, y'all, I'm going to stop here. We now have her opening her girls' school, and the next installment, we'll find out how she fared. Thank you for listening, y'all, and have a great day.